when a child is facing a challenge that feels too big and scary for them, they will actually go and do other things that build up their sense of capability and confidence before returning to the challenge at hand.
Hello and welcome to Teachers Talks. I'm your host, Jeff McAdam. Does your child hesitate? Don't mistake that as a weakness. Our next guest says they may just be sizing up a challenge before taking a running leap. She says that hesitation, in fact, may be one of their greatest strengths.
Come on in, let's rock. It's time for Two Trees Talks. It's time for Two Trees Talks.
She's a doctor of philosophy. She's a parenting and relationship coach. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Betsy Blackard. Hi, Dr. Betsy. It's Dr. Betsy.
That's
how
right,
we
yeah.
say it? Okay.
Sure,
Betsy.
yeah.
Okay.
Betsy, yeah, you can just call me Betsy, that's fine.
Welcome to the show. I stumbled upon your work through your TED Talk and was really interested in what you had to say about the running leap. We'll get into it, but I just want to start by saying, like, who are you? What is your experience? You've been in this industry for 20 years?
That's right, yeah. So I'm a kid expert, and my expertise started when I was 12 years old and I started babysitting. And I've been working with kids and their parents ever since. So through the years, I was a babysitter, nanny, preschool teacher, after-school care, kind of any position you can get where you're working with children, one-on-one to large groups of kids. And then in college, I got a degree in psychology, and then I went on to get a PhD in developmental psychology. And my particular area of focus in developmental psychology was the parent-child relationship. So for my dissertation, I studied mothers and their preschool-age children, and I looked at things related to attachment. I don't know if you've heard of attachment theory, so stuff related to children's attachment, and then outcomes about children's emotion regulation. And so I have a parenting business that I run with my mom. Our kind of umbrella company is Language of Listening, and the company that I'm starting underneath that umbrella is How Kids Work, because that's kind of that's my area of expertise. I understand how kids work, and I've really found that once you understand what kids are actually up to, how their brains work, what they are thinking, so many interactions in your daily life become so much simpler. You have less frustration, more cooperation, more joy, and it's been a really wonderful thing to do with my mother, who started this parenting company when I was young, and it's grown into the sort of mother-daughter partnership that we have, and I love my coworker as my mom. We have so much fun together. Yeah, my sister and I were sort of the guinea pigs of this approach that we teach. We were like the first kids to be raised with her approach. And we loved it. We've always felt super understood and cared for. One of the things I think is most important is even when my mom and I disagreed on things my whole life, I still always felt like she was on my side and in my corner, which is huge, especially going into the teen years and the other times that it can be really difficult. I always felt like I could confide in her and receive non-judgmental support. Just really great. And my dream is for every family to have the kind of closeness that they're looking for parents to get to enjoy their kids and feel confident and capable in everyday situations with their kids, and have the whole family be able to enjoy each other and stay close.
Oh, and on that note, so the clip that I stumbled on, your TED Talk about the running leap, describe to me, what is the running leap and helping kids build confidence? What is that?
Absolutely. So the running leap is a theory of motivation. It's really kind of all humans, but my TED Talk focused on children and their motivation. And it's the idea that when a child is facing a challenge that feels too big and scary for them, they will actually go and do other things that build up their sense of capability and confidence before returning to the challenge at hand.
All right, Mina, so if you would please imagine that you're taking a little nature walk and you come upon a little trickle of a stream, how would you get across it to continue your walk? Yeah, exactly like that. Okay, great. All right, now, what if the stream was just a little wider, like maybe like that wide? How would you get across it? Great, okay. Now, scoot back just a little. Okay, now, what if it was this wide across? I'm gonna put it right at your toes. What if it was about this wide across? Can you get across it without getting your feet wet? Nice, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so did anybody notice what he did? Any volunteers? Jump. Before jumping. He backed up. That's right. He backed up before taking that running leap. And without backing up like that, he wouldn't have been able to make it all the way across, right? And you would never mistake backing up like that for like backing away from a challenge, right? Thank you, Mina. One summer, I was at the community pool and I saw a little girl about 6 or 7 standing at the top of a water slide, and she was frozen in place. Everything in her body language indicated fear and regret. She finally turned around and walked back down the stairs. Now, because I know about the running leap, this is when I got really interested. And you know what she did? She walked right over to a toddler splash pad and found a baby slide. This thing like barely came up to her waist, but she was going down it feet first and then head first and then backwards. She was having a blast. I want you to think for a second about what you might say to a child in a situation like this. You might feel like you need to jump in there and motivate that little girl to push through her fears so she can learn that she can do hard things. That's definitely what her mom thought. She was over there saying things like, "Oh, you don't want to play on this? It's for babies. Come on, let's go back to the big slide. I know you can do it." She really wanted her daughter to have that win. However, this baby slide business wasn't just for fun. The little girl was mastering a smaller challenge first to build her confidence. And she knew exactly how many steps she needed to take to get that running leap.
And it's an important perspective to bring to children's motivation, because I think so often as adults, we're really concerned that they need to, accomplish things and overcome things and learn that they can do hard things, hit these challenges and try hard enough and succeed through repetition. And that when they're facing a challenge and they step away, we might see it as like maybe they're backing away out of fear, maybe they're regressing. You've got like, especially in the early years, they advance in stages and then they go back to wanting to suck their thumb and sit in your lap all the time, all these different things. And it can be so scary as the adult, the caregiver, the parent, that they have like lost the skill that they built, or that they will never learn that they can overcome challenges. They'll never be able to do this thing. So the running leap is the perspective that if you just take a step back, if you can kind of like, sit on your hands and not say anything, if you're able to have patience, you will often see the child go do other things that build their sense of self, their self-esteem, their confidence, and on their own time return back to this challenge. And it can happen in little tiny moments. Like in my talk, I talk about a child at the swimming pool who wanted to take a big water slide and started with a baby water slide. And it can happen in really, really big scale. So things like maybe if a child is like trying out for a sports team and they don't make it one year, then they might spend the rest of the year doing a different sport or practicing, and they'll come back again the next year. But it's access to having faith in the child that they have that intrinsic motivation and they do want this thing for themselves, and they are working on it in a way that is best for them, and they don't always need the external pressure from us to push them to do something they don't feel ready to do.
Yeah, and kind of sizing it up on the road. I think, I had mentioned that we go to Sky Zone quite a bit, and they have, for anybody who's been to Sky Zone, there's like the medium slide, and then there's like the really tall slide with like the ski ramp looking thing that comes off the top. Yeah. And my 3-year-old daughter's been doing it since the day she walked in there. No problems, no fears. But my son, who's 2 years older than her, so reluctant. It took him like 10 visits before he got to the point where he felt comfortable enough to do the medium slide. And I've never pushed him, but I feel like he looks at his sister and sees all the stuff that she's doing. She's jumping off the tower, she's doing, and he's just like, I'm not there yet. I'm gonna keep doing these things that I am good at. And I see him. He's getting the little wins, one at a time. But kind of to your point, I'm sitting back and and she might tease him a little bit, like, "Hey, aren't you gonna do the big stuff?" Yeah. but all in all, yeah, he's on his own pace. He's at his own pace.
Yeah, and the running leap is a perspective that lets you as the adult understand that that's what he's up to, and you can even have conversations with him about it. Like you are really thoughtful about this. You've noticed all the different things. You're really aware of the potential risks. This is a child who thinks things through deeply and doesn't just rush into things, which is a strength. And that's the kind of thing you can acknowledge, help him see that it's a strength he has, instead of maybe just feeling like he's not as brave as his sister, or like he should be ready for things he doesn't feel ready for yet and feeling wrong for that. You can help him reframe it as like every time we go, you look around for the stuff that you feel safe doing, and you don't do things that don't feel safe to you, which is a really great thing for a kid to know about themselves. Like imagine as a teenager knowing, I don't do things that don't feel safe for me. As a teenage boy, yeah, that's a great thing to know about it. He's got this internal compass that says that doesn't feel safe. I'm going to wait until I feel ready.
That's smart. That's a good way to word it. Yeah. That's much better than his sister. It's like, come on, don't be a weenie.
Don't worry, yeah. Your baby, yeah, yeah. No, this is a kid who assesses things and is thoughtful and strategic.
You done an entire study during grad school
That's right.
on strength-based parenting. So what is that? Is that finding the things that your children are right? You identify their strengths
That's
and
right.
then move from that, or
Yeah.
how does that work?
Yeah, exactly. So strength-based parenting is identifying your child's strengths and then pointing it out to them and helping them see that they have those strengths and then helping them live into those strengths. And I mean, the really cool thing about when you help a child see a strength that they have and they really believe in it, then they just start living like it's true. And it's kind of the magic of strength. We call it success training, is you point out successes and then they learn from their successes that they can do things, they learn their strengths. So, I mean, one of the, it's kind of like a reverse engineering of a really, really common thing that happens. So children are very concrete, right? They're not abstract thinkers. So they live in the physical world, the things they can touch, the things they can see, that's what feels real. Stuff like tomorrow, you probably have experienced tomorrow does not feel real to a child. If you say, we can do that tomorrow, you might as well have said, we'll never do it, as far as they're concerned. So, right, they're present and they're physical. So when you are trying to help them believe that they have a certain strength or skill, if you explain that strength, if you point out the strength that they have with their own experience to back it up, it will feel real to them. Whereas if you just offer a strength out of the blue, it might feel more like a compliment. Like, it's nice, it's a nice thing that you said, they may or may not believe you. So, and we accidentally do this a lot as adults, kind of in the reverse, right? So if you've got a kid who has a toy and they don't feel like sharing, and and their sister is crying because she wants it, and then you say like, hey, that's not nice, you need to share. Or, like you need to be generous, or you're, especially if you have like a negative label on it, right? Like you're being stingy, you're being selfish, those kind of things. Then they've got the behavior that they're doing and then a label for it. So that's like their behavior is proof, and then it becomes true. Like, this is me, this is what I'm doing. That's the word for it, is selfish. So I guess I am a selfish kid because my behavior has proved it. And then you've got a kid who believes that they're selfish and they're really going to struggle not to be selfish.
Yeah, it's even like when something's not going well, I might even say like, hey, Landon, you're a really good kid. You're making some bad choices right now, though. But I try to like start with you're for a guy who's really, you're such a really smart guy.
Yeah.
But this choice makes me a little bit
Yeah.
surprised.
And even that's a perfect place to start, right? Is I know you're a good kid.
Yeah.
So then you can come from, if you really want to come from that perspective of like, you are a good kid, then it's like,
Yeah.
you are a really good kid and you're doing something that doesn't feel in alignment with who you really are right now. So what happened
Yeah.
that you're acting this way? Because that's not normal. That's not who you are. So let's figure out what happened to have you behave like this so you can go back to being the kid you actually are,
Yeah.
which is a good, nice, kind, respectful person. And if you investigate challenging behaviors from that perspective, then you can really, you're keeping in your head who the child really is as a good person, and then they're experiencing that's who they really are. As you both look together for like, what went wrong that you felt like you needed to hit your sister? Because that's
Yeah.
not, you don't like hitting her. That's not who you really are. So something must have happened that you really felt like no choice but to hit her.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about building confidence, and but before we jumped on here, you and I had talked a little bit about. I wanted to get your perspective on my dad's.
Yeah.
He had an interesting strategy to building. So my younger brother, my half brother, is 12 years younger than me. But growing up, as I was helping, take care of him, when I was like 16 and he was 3, we'd play hockey or whatever it was together. And my dad said, for like 4 weeks straight or whatever it was, just let him win every game, let him win every single game. And then at some point he flipped it, and it was like, okay, you can win or win all the time. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, I can start winning. I always wondered, like, what was the psychology behind that? I don't know. You might know. Is there anything that is like a positive to that? I never asked him, but I always wondered what his thought was behind that.
Yes. Yeah. I spend a lot of my time actually trying to figure out the parents' intentions or adults' intentions behind particular things for their kids. Because in the same way as with children, right? Like, parents love their kids, grandparents love their kids. And so teachers, you want the child to do well. So anything an adult is doing that I'm like, oh, maybe that's not ideal. There's somewhere in there is like they want something for this kid. They have an outcome in mind. And so, trying to, I would have to imagine it has something to do with wanting your little brother to enjoy himself and gain a love of the activity. You said it's hockey?
Yes. Yeah.
So like enjoy playing hockey, gain a love for playing hockey, have a good time playing with his brother, bond with you, those kind of things. And so he has this innate sense that like if he starts right off the bat and he loses every time and everything is hard and sucks, then he's
Right.
probably not going to want to keep doing it.
Sure.
And so you've got to give him a lead in of having a good time and feeling capable and successful and gaining confidence and all these things. And then I would imagine he's also understands that if the child only ever wins and faces no difficulty, then he won't have a real sense of how things work, how the game works, how life works. So at some point you kind of have to like step in and like teach them, well, actually you don't get to win all the time. And I can also imagine it being really difficult, you know, as a 3 or 4 year old to play a game. And I think I know 4 weeks is an eternity when you're 3 or 4 years old. You know what I mean? That's forever. So if you play it works out the same every day. You're doing these things and they're working and you're winning and you're scoring points. And that's the game. You get to do these things and then it's fun. And then all of a sudden one day everything is different. You could see a meltdown coming, you know? It'd be very, very hard to suddenly have everything changed on you, kind of the rug pulled out from under you experience. You know, and then as the older brother or parent or whatever, you know, you're kind of in this place of like, oh no, is he going to be a sore loser? Is he going to struggle with, you know, he needs to learn that he has to lose. And so then the temptation is to put him in more situations where he loses and force him to come to terms with that loss more often. But then you might get a kid who's really like, sticks up for like, no, this isn't fair. This doesn't make sense. This isn't how it works. It's not supposed to be like this, and really struggles to cope with losing. So I always suggest if parents are hoping to help their child become a gracious loser and feel comfortable with losing and enjoy a game and whatever else, it's really related to the logic under the running leap, which is the idea that children have goals, they have their own goals inside of them. They're intrinsically motivated to succeed, to grow. And there's like a ton of psych research on like humans are growth oriented. We just are. We move toward what's better for us, becoming stronger, better, smarter, kinder, those things. So children are born with an innate drive to grow and succeed. And so you can trust that this kid has that desire inside to be able to handle loss gracefully, to be able to face challenges that are hard at first and get better at them over time. Then same logic under the running leap as under helping kids with competitive games is you can just come to the kid and say, hey, we're going to play this game. Do you want me to play against you easy, medium, or hard? And you just put it to them, you know, especially like it's kind of can be like how are you feeling today? Like maybe today was really hard at school and you just need an easy win right now, you know, or maybe this is a new game and you're feeling low in confidence and you want to build confidence. But whatever it is, like the kid doesn't have to know, they don't come to you as a 3-year-old like, oh, today was really rough and I just need a win. You know what I mean? They just, things happen and they react however their brain sets them up to react in that moment. Right. So if you give them first, like if you say, do you want me to play easy, medium, or hard, then they can think for a second and they can just feel, you know, they're not overthinking. It's just kind of like, oh, they know that they need easy. And so they'll just say easy.
Yeah, and I guess I always thought to myself, like, nobody wants to win when they know the other person's not trying their hardest. But to your point, too, it's like, you know, if you ever play video games, they have the difficulty levels set on there where you can do beginner, you know, proficient or advanced. Totally. And there's no shame in starting off on beginner. In fact, it makes it more enjoyable to play.
Totally. You can get, and it's like video games are like, so much of the way video games are built was designed based off of our understanding of motivation and psychology. And specifically, there's something that some of my friends researched called flow, which is the idea of like when you get really engrossed and really engaged in something, you kind of lose concept of time and you're just like really locked in. Yeah. And it happens to creatives that like painters will get lost in a paint, 12 hours at the canvas and not realize whatever. It happens in sports. There's lots of places that it happens. And so video game developers tapped into the things that we know facilitate flow to create this, and which is why they can feel so addicting, is because they're like perfectly engineered to keep you in that exact state of like, it's a little bit harder than my skill level, but if I work a little bit, I can get to it. And it keeps, so the challenge is just above your ability the whole time and it feels rewarding. So but like you said, anybody would know if you start a game on the hardest level, you're just going to lose and it's just going to suck. So you expect that you'll start on easy and get harder. And I think, especially with kids, if you can be so above board about like, I'm letting you win, I know I'm letting you win. Sometimes you just need a win and that's okay. It's okay to feel like I just need a win right now and pick something that gives you that win. And then they never feel deceived if they later learn that you were like being, and you don't have to, that's the hardest part too as a grown up, is you're sitting there like, how hard do I make it? Do I absolutely cream them, or like maybe I like let them earn a couple points to make it feel fit, and then you're doing all this work in your head. versus if you just had the conversation up front with the kid, like easy, medium, or hard.
Yeah.
And with most kids, you'll find that if you give them long enough of easy, they will start to choose medium and hard, just like those video games, because it stops being fun. You know you can win. You know you'll win every. And if you know that that option's always on the table, you do hard, you lose. You can go, can we play easy this time?
Yeah.
You really are letting the child set the pace that works for them, and then they can take on the chance of losing at a pace that they feel ready for, and they continue to be engaged and excited about.
One of the things that I'd seen on your website, that you kind of dove into, is how you teach patience.
Okay, yeah.
I was like, I could use a little bit of that, trying to figure that out, because I have the two kids, and like, even yesterday when I picked them up, I saw this example too, but on your website. But as soon as you pick them up, it's one of them's like, Dad, look what I did, Dad. And the other one's like, Dad, look what I did. And then I just followed him first. And why was I'm like, and I'm also trying to sign out and do all these other things. But I want you guys to feel like I'm hearing you, but also like, just give me a break.
Yeah.
So whether it's like, in a situation like that or at the house or whatever, what tips, what advice do you have that help kids understand, like, there's a time for them to speak, and it's not always all the time.
Yes. Yeah. That is. And it's such a sweet thing, right? They just love you and want to share with you. It comes from such a sweet place. I think this is similar to strength-based parenting. This is there's an opportunity for success training. It's sort of like these are kids who are excited to share with you and want to share, and also you want them to learn to have patience, to be able to like pay attention and stuff, and also like they want that, right? That's going to make their life work better if they can like take turns in conversations and have patience and not feel anxiously like they need everything all the time. So I think that's another thing is sometimes as a parent you can feel guilty for like setting boundaries that in the moment maybe they are frustrated with, and it's easier when you remember that like it's not just that you have this goal for them to learn patience, that's also a goal of theirs. They don't know it. Right? They're not in touch with it the way we are. But really, if we're thinking about helping them become the adult they want to become, they want patience too. So you are on their side in this. You're on their team, giving them the skill of patience, even if in the moment it's kind of frustrating to have to practice it. And then, so let's see. So if you're picking them both up from school and they're both talking, I think I would even, like in the morning on the drive to school, have a conversation about like, when I come pick you up, there's some things I have to do before we can leave. And you guys are always so excited to talk to me, and you have so many things to share with me, and I can't wait I love hearing them. And I just have to do a couple things before I can listen. So maybe we need to make a plan for how to, do you pick them up from like different classrooms?
No, well, at least right now it's summer camp. So same place. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's you can point that out too. And there's two of you, and you both come up, and you've both got stuff to tell me, and I've got to check you out, and I want to listen to both of you. So we got to figure out a way that we can do all these things.
Yeah.
And it is like that. I want it, you want it. We're all on the same team here.
Right.
And then and you can make a plan, and then you see how they can say, oh, we'll take turns, and then the moment comes, and they forget. They're too excited or whatever.
Totally.
So you can. Like both of them, I guess, if you haven't signed them out or anything, you have to tell both of them, right? You can and I always try to like get down on their level, you're kneeling so that you're looking them eye to eye, those kind of things, as close as you can get. And like you guys, and you start with acknowledging what's going on in their brains. Because their children are, more self-focused. The older you get, the more able you are to take perspective and be other-focused. But it is developmentally appropriate that they are like, we call it egocentric. They're self-focused at young ages. So always in a moment where you're trying to connect with them, you want to start with where their brain is, where they're thinking. And I mean, it really boils down to like, if we start from like where we are and expect them to come understand us, they're developmentally incapable. But we as the adult are totally capable of joining them. So just if you want to have smooth interactions, joining them where they are first, connecting on the level they're currently at first, gives them the space to feel like, okay, he gets it, he heard me. And then they are a little bit more open to whatever you're going to offer or suggest. So I always start with, it's the first step.
Game plan it ahead of time too, like before we drop them off, even well in advance, kind of have the talk. Now listen, when I pick you guys up, you're going to want to show me stuff. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Just presencing it as like, and it's not even like a problem, right? It's just like, this is a thing that's been happening, and I want to listen to both of you, and you both want to tell me stuff, and there's so much going on that I can't hear anything. So we got to figure out a way that I can actually hear you guys, because I'm so excited to see what you made each day. So let's figure out a way that I can do that. Let's make a plan that works. And then they're already like in that problem solving mode. You guys are on the same team. And then when you actually, maybe you make a plan of the kids often will, taking turns is a pretty common one that's been handed to them by many adults, so they're pretty used to it. Or who knows? They come when you really put it to children, like what can we do, and you just leave it open, they will come up with the most bananas. It's so children are so brilliant, they're so cute. So I mean, like one time I was working at a preschool where we had one swing, and it was only like a dozen kids or something, and I was pushing one of them, and then another one wanted to turn, and it turned into like kind of a line where all of them wanted to get in the swing. And so I was like, oh, your friend wants to go next, so we have to pick we have to pick a number of swings for you to be done. You can't swing forever, basically, And then it was like, how many swings do you think you'll need before you feel ready to get off and let your friend have a turn? And I always start there, because even if they say like infinity zillion, then I can just be like, oh, well, that doesn't work. He won't ever get a turn if we do infinity zillion. My arms will fall off before we do infinity zillion pushes. So that's too many, and you can just back and forth with them until they pick a reasonable number. And then, so this kid settled on, but immediately out the gate, he was like, I want 5 pushes because I'm 5. And I was like, cool, great, wonderful. So he got off, and then the next kid got on, and I was like, okay, you have another friend waiting, so how long do you think you'll need to swing before you'll feel done and ready to hand it off? And she was like, I want 4 pushes because I'm 4. I was like, cool. So each kid ended up like, that became the thing. They wanted as many pushes as they were years old. And I think, as an adult with a half dozen kids, I would have been like, let's be fair, everybody gets 5, or whatever. But then in those situations, you often get kids who are like a little bit resentful, like that wasn't what they wanted, it doesn't feel fair to them. And if you just say like, this is my limit, is like, for me, and also I was like, I simply won't do more than 10 per child, because it just made sense to me. So in my head, I had this kind of a like, well, if we get, I'll have to keep working with them and finally even say like no more than 10. But you start with like, what do you think? What's your idea? And then they will propose all kinds of things that I would have never thought of, and that they're totally happy with because it was their idea. And then you don't have to sit there and convince a kid that it's fair and we made this choice because like you skip all of that stuff. So, so with your kids, if you're looking at like, how do we make sure everybody gets heard after camp every day? And then they come up with whatever plan they come up with, you can just be like, all right, if it works for you, then okay, let's try it. And like I said, especially by 5 or 6, they've usually had turn taking introduced to them, and they might just go right with that. But then you agree on the plan, and then you go pick them up and see how it goes. See if they are able to stick with the plan. And if they're not, it's not like there's nothing wrong. It's just like, oh, that plan didn't work. We thought it would. Clearly, it doesn't. We need to try something else. But if I'm going to pick them up and they forget, and they both run up to you, and they both have a million things they want to share with you, and you've got to sign them out and whatever, I would get down on the same level as them, eye to eye. And like I said, this is where we're jumping into their brain. What's going on with them? So you're like, you guys are so excited to see me. You're holding this thing. You want to show me this. You guys have so much to show me. And as soon as I check us out, we can do that. So you're like acknowledging first, like this is what's going on in your brain and it matters. And I'm just going to do this really quick and then I'll come back to it. And I really like the switch from you can't do this until X. If you swap that for as soon as X, you can do it. That's way more motivating for children. They're way more interested in like, what do I need to do to get to the thing I want? Not like you can't have it until then it feels like, it's just less motivating. So as soon as I finish checking us out, we're going to go in the hallway and you guys are going to show me your stuff. And then they've got also a by when, like I said, kids with time, they need really concrete. So like event 1, event 2 really helps anchor them in time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So like as soon as this is over, this next, this first, this next, this last, then they can deal with that. That's like, okay, so then we'll, as soon as this is over, okay.
Okay, well, along those same lines, and I'll finish with this, but it's like after dinner, every night we have about a 30-minute window after dinner before bath time. And we usually, hey, why don't you guys, do what you free time.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it can be turn on the TV. We limit it to about that amount of time, or it could be color, it could be whatever. But more often than not, I find that at some point in that 30-minute window, they're coming over to like me at the table if I'm working on something or doing something. They're coming over to me, or they're getting in fights with each other. Like if you go long enough, like it's just like somebody pulled on somebody's leg or somebody smacked the other one. Or
so I think one of the things that children's brains are wired for growth, like I said, so that requires constant stimulation. So a kid will not sit still and be bored. They just won't. Their brain won't let it happen. And so if kind of the easiest stimulation around is like a sibling right next to them that they can start messing with, that's what they'll do. So, and that's, that's not to say don't let them be bored, because they should. That's really good for the brain to be bored too. Kids need boredom tolerance, and it's where creativity comes from and all these other things. But it's just like that's one, it's basically like they need to do something, and that's the first thing their brain has thought of. So they do it. It doesn't mean they have to be allowed to do that thing, right? They just need to do something. And so that's maybe the easiest access. And then the other thing is, a lot of times with siblings, there will be kind of almost like an ongoing mental tally on some kind of cosmic scoreboard. So like, if they seem fine, you had dinner, everything's fine, they're sitting on the couch watching a movie, and like out of nowhere, your son reaches over and smacks your daughter. It's not actually out of nowhere. It came from something. And it could have come from like, this morning he wanted juice and she got it instead, or like she got your attention when he was, who knows, it could be literally, it could be like when you were picking them up and she got in the car first and that felt unfair. He didn't. And in the moment, you kind of let it go and you move on, but there's this like little tiny frustration. And kids are so focused on fairness. They really, really care about fairness. And I'm sure that's not fair. Like kids, they're so aware of like justice and fairness. And so they will keep in mind this kind of like, well, that wasn't really fair. She did this thing to me and I got to even the score somehow. So it feels justified to just smack her, because then now we've evened the score. But now in her head, he hit her out of nowhere. So now she's justified in hitting back, right? Because that's fair. So there's like and this all goes back to what we were talking about earlier about like, I know who you really are, and this behavior is totally out of alignment with who you really are. So something must have happened. And it's approaching the sibling conflict from that perspective of like, you love each other and you get along. And that's the default. That's the norm. That's who you are. So anytime you're bickering or fighting, it's because something threw that relationship off kilter. So we got to figure out what that was, so you guys can go back to the default, which is loving, connected, supportive. And
it's
just
actually, I think it's,
yeah.
I think it's like twofold with them too, because she is not as interested in TV, which is in that 30-minute window. They seem to, that seems to be what they gravitate towards doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he, he'll, and inevitably, as usually men do, I'll put that stereotype out there, he decides to lay claim to that TV remote. And so it's usually what he wants to watch mostly. And even if it is something that they both like, I just don't think she's really into television. So I think to your point, if it's something that she's not interested in, she's going to like look to try. It's usually her. I can go back and I can see like usually it's her that it pokes him or it hits him or does something because she's just bored, I think.
Yeah,
so maybe
and
it's just finding something for her.
She would rather play with him, but he doesn't want to play because he's got his show on. So that she wants interaction with him, and so she's just what will get interaction from him. And it's not her preference. She doesn't want to get in a fight with him. She wants his attention. She wants to play. And she doesn't necessarily have the foresight of like, oh, if I poke him, it'll turn into blah, blah, and then we'll even fight, and that'll suck. Right? Her brain is literally in the present moment, no future yet, of just like, I just want him to notice me. And then he does, and then things go downhill, and then it's So I mean, it could be like helping them pick something that she wants to watch first, and then he gets to go second, or finding something they actually want to watch together, or like you said, finding something else for her to do.
Teaching us patience, teaching us confidence. Really appreciate you being on the show today. If people have follow-up questions, how do they reach you? Where can they find you?
Yeah. Okay. So we have. I have my How Kids Work website, and it's just howkidswork.com. And there's access to like online classes and one-on-one coaching and stuff, but there's also a contact form, which just goes straight to my email inbox. So if anybody has like particular questions or anything else, want a direct line to me, that's where the contact form goes.
Perfect. We'll put the information on our website too, so parents can find you there.
Great.
Dr. Betsy Blackard, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
You got it.